Our next presenter is Catherine Blake of Sales Protocol International.
Yes. Thank you. Good morning, Brunswick.
Good morning.
My name is Catherine Blake. I'm the founder of Sales Protocol International, and we do sales and marketing consulting. Our tagline is "We think you grow," and what this means is I help organizations increase their revenue through two things. On the sales side, it's coaching, training, and strategy, and on the marketing side, it's strategy and execution. Founded in 2005 in New England, and my husband and I have recently relocated here, and we have launched the LLC through the Secretary of State about a month ago here, so we are now a Georgia LLC. Hooray! So part of my challenge is to establish my business here in the area, and I would love to hear from you and get your help and ideas on how I can better do that. So why I started my company? I started my company really because I was really mad, and I was mad about the lack of ethics in the workplace. Just a quick story. I came out of the tech industry, and one of the companies I worked for was a $500 million company, and it was really interesting because we had a great year. It was the end of the year. The stock price was going through the roof. Everybody was happy, and come to find out that someone in our Latin American group had stuffed the channels, which made the revenue go artificially high. Stock price jumped. The executive lined their pockets, and the CFO of the company actually sent in his resignation. He's like, you know, it's time to retire in Florida. We've had a great year. Why not end on a bang? So off he went, hired a new CFO. He came in, he opened the books, and he was like, oh goodness, I have to report this by law. So a triple class action lawsuit later by the shareholders really put the company into a tailspin. And that was really rough as a young professional at the time. I was so disappointed. We worked so hard, and then to find out, you know, it was on the backs of us that these folks did something unethical. It was really, really a tough lesson. Fast forward to later on in my career, I worked for a startup. I would go down to New York and other places, and we'd go to these investor meetings, and they'd ask me to step out of the room. And I'm like, why am I stepping out of the room? Well, as it turns out, one of the founders had a record of white-collar crime, which had to be disclosed to investors. I knew nothing about this. I was there for about a year, and then my paycheck bounced, and I'm like, well, this is really strange. Well, and then I turned in my expense report for an international business trip, and they're like, we can't pay this. So I bailed. I found out the rest of the employees went to speak to the state offices, the Attorney General's office, about this particular group of individuals. Anyway, it was a nightmare. So I was so broken and so angry and so upset. I'm like, this is just horrible. I'm going to start my own business, because if I can work this hard for other people and make this much money for other people, then I might as well do it for myself. So, yeah, baby. So that's what I did. Now, the next question is, how do you do that? But before I get there, really what the takeaway for that lesson was, you know, get angry, but get motivated. Because sometimes our anger and these tough lessons are exactly what drive us to go do something about it. So I founded my business, and when I did that, I promised that I was going to tithe 10% of every dollar coming in to help other people. And I've held that ever since. The other thing that I did was I started, thank you. It's not about me. The other thing that I did was I founded a group called Marketplace Connection. And I didn't have the energy. It could have been a nonprofit. I didn't have the energy to start a nonprofit at the time, but I gathered business leaders. We met at the Sheraton Hotel every month, and we had a different speaker that came from the community, and they talked about how they applied their faith at work. Because I thought, you know what, if I can kind of help raise the bar in the awareness of ethics in business and in the community, you know, maybe I've done like just one little thing to help. So that actually ran for 7 years, and it was a great run. We ran it as a ministry through the church because I just couldn't figure out how else to do it, but it made sense to land it there, and they were very, very supportive. So I want to tell you now how I started my business. I didn't really, I mean, I had a business degree, I had business education, but I worked for corporations. So I really didn't have a clue in terms of how to get started. Thank goodness, I found a program. It was through the Small Business Administration and the Economic Development arm of state government. So it was an entrepreneurial boot camp. And with that, there were 24 of us. So we had a cohort of other entrepreneurs that came together, and we went through this 10-week program on how to launch a business. We learned, first and foremost, how to write a business plan. Through that, number one, we had each other. And secondly, we had the rigor of the process, because through this business education, we learned all the things that you needed to get funding, which was really important. We also learned, I mean, you can imagine the agenda, I won't go into it here, but the education was really key. The other thing that helped me tremendously was all those resources. It was SCORE, it was SBA, it was economic development, community colleges, college systems, also things like MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnership. All of these entities were resources, and these were people that wanted to help. In addition, getting involved with industry groups. So I joined what was the High Tech Council, volunteered, got on the board, ran a committee, and that, what ends up happening is you get to know a lot of people. You're working hard to raise the economics of the region and to be part of that ecosystem that we heard about earlier. I want to just say to the mayor, I applaud your efforts, this joint venture here, because this is exactly what is needed, is we've got to teach people how to launch businesses. The education is so important, all right? So really the second kind of takeaway is stick to your knitting. Big mistake I made, I thought, I'm gonna start a business. I love design. As much as I'm a business person and a sales and marketing person, I love design. I've got a creative part of my brain. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna start an interior design consulting business where I take the protocols, if you will, of negotiation and sales and layer that on top of how to really help designers bring groups of people together to approve designs. HGTV was just getting going with all these shows, so I contacted HGTV. I contacted a guy running a program where he went into couples and tried to get couples to agree on the design of their home. It's a pretty funny show. But so I was in conversation with him, because of course they would always fight, which made good TV. But of course, so anyway, I got into a conversation with him. I was trying to figure out, really how to launch this. And I went to design school. I actually went to Boston, enrolled in a program, got an internship at an architectural firm, and really fast I realized I really wasn't good at the design part, but I was crushing their business on business development, sales, and marketing. And we seriously rebranded, redid the website, and we went after the largest military deal that they'd ever seen. It was a multi-million-dollar deal. All the owners, paid off all their loans. I mean, they were just thrilled, and I'm like, you know what? I'm an idiot. Why am I trying to do design when really what I know how to do is grow businesses? So stick to your knitting, leverage your expertise, and get into the zone of what you're really good at. So we talked about resources and how to succeed. I would say really the last thing I want to say is that there is a secret to getting rich. Do you want to know the secret? Yeah. All right. So, quick story. There was a lady, you may have heard of her. Her name is Stella McCarthy. She lived in Mississippi. She was a simple washwoman. And what she did her entire career was clean people's houses and do their laundry. One day, the University of Mississippi got a phone call from this lady. And she said, I want to give you $100,000. And they're like, no one gives us $100,000. Who are you? And of course, they met with her, and she handed over $100,000. And the point is that for her, she wanted to see others succeed. She wanted to see young people have the opportunity that she never had herself. And so really what I want to say to you is how to really get rich is give. As much as we're working hard and growing our businesses and trying to figure all this out, we have a great responsibility to help, teach, mentor, and support each other. And that, my friends, is how to get rich. Thank you.
Another presenter who needs enthusiasm lessons, we have here. Also, it continues one of the themes for those of you who've been here for the whole time is about over 2/3 of our presenters are successful female entrepreneurs. That this is unusual, that this among cities is very, very special for us. So I'm glad you all could come and continue that theme. But questions for Lily Catherine? All right, Ms. Lee.
While he's heading back there, I have business cards on the front table here if any of you would like to take one or leave one. I'd love to connect with you. Yes?
Is it transplant day? Both of them are transplants from way up there. But what have you done to promote your business so far?
So first of all, I'm a boomerang, okay? I grew up in Atlanta, went to Westminster schools. I don't know if we have any Wildcats in the room, but I went to Westminster schools and then went to New England for college, worked, got married, and found my way back to the town that my grandparents lived in. So this is sort of a second home for me. But in terms of promoting my business, what I'm doing right now is I'm in kind of heads down research mode. So I'm making strategic connections with some of the entities that I mentioned before. I'm connecting with key leaders of the ecosystem right now. I'm also doing research on the industry sectors to get my head wrapped around who those leaders are and what, how to really go after those and align those with the industry experience that I have. And then I'm going to go in like a surgeon, and I'm going to talk to those people about how I can help their business. So in terms of promotion, for me, it's really about as a trusted advisor, really most of my business is through referral. And so I'm not so much of a buckshot type of marketer, but I'm more of a shotgun. That makes sense.
All right, another question, please. All right.
Who is your ideal business client in terms of size, industry type, etc.?
Thank you for asking. It's really, really strange. In my experience, there are really two. So there's industry verticals like manufacturing, tech, defense, aerospace, biomedical, and then small business to a point. In terms of revenue, this is really strange. All right, 14 years in business. It's between the like 2 to 30 million, and then it jumps to the 10 to 30 billion. So as a small business, having been in business 14 years, I've landed $3 billion clients, which is crazy, but what the reason is they're so busy. They need somebody to come in and just do stuff for them. So that's how those deals happen. And then the smaller end, it was just really through word of mouth and through strategic partnerships.
Good. Another question. Another question. All right. Well, Catherine, we're glad you could come.
Thank you.
And again, here's some corporate swag.
Thank you.